Have you ever sat in the grass or at school on a science project in elementary school to watch a butterfly go through its change from caterpillar to butterfly? If so, you're familiar with the excitement that comes from it at any moment or day. The butterfly should break completely out of its cocoon. When the moment finally comes, you would get so excited to see the miracle before you. You get to see the cocoon crack open and see the butterfly begin its struggles for its new life. Sometimes it wiggles and jiggles as it worked to become free, and other times it remained motionless as it gathered strength to try again. Then it happens. The new butterfly is free, and you're able to see both wings of the lovely butterfly as it dropped completely out of the cocoon. What a big change from the fuzzy caterpillar that had been placed in the jar so long ago. We as people go through so many changes as we grow older that are real similar to this, in my opinion. And as Christians, I feel like oftentimes our transformations are even more prominent and oftentimes more painful. God continues to develop our hearts and minds as we're constantly having to say no to our selfish desires and give God control over everything. There was one such man in the Bible that comes to my mind who God worked a completely transforming miracle in his life. And after he accepted God, he served as a speaker of truth, traveling to many places, and as a result, God worked through so many. And before God came to him, his name was Saul. Saul was an angry man who did not like people who believed in Jesus at all. He would yell and scream at them. Anytime people would try to spread the word of Jesus, he'd shout nasty threats at them. He would beat them and even sometimes kill them. Saul definitely was not a man many would want to befriend. On a particular day in his life, Saul was traveling to the city of Damascus. He wanted the leaders of the city to give him permission to hurt more children of God. As he and his friends were making their way along the dusty road, discussing what they were going to say to the leaders and bragging about how happy they would be to receive permission to persecute Christians, there was suddenly, from out of heaven, the brightest light Saul had ever seen. The light surrounded him. He tried to cover his eyes to shield them from that light, but it was so bright that it still hurt his eyes even then. He fell to the ground, trying to get away from it. Then he heard a voice. It was unlike any other voice he had ever heard. It was saying, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" Saul, not recognizing the voice, said, "Who are you?" And the answer came back, "I am Jesus." Of course, Saul was terribly afraid. He was shaking and trembling and could hardly speak. But in a weak voice he replied, "Jesus? What should I do?" Jesus replied, "Go into the city and someone will meet you and tell you what to do." The friends that were there with him were astonished. They didn't see the light and they didn't see a person, but they only heard the voice. They didn't have a clue what was happening. When Saul was able to get off the ground, he uncovered his eyes, but he couldn't see anything. His friends had to hold his hand and lead him into the city of Damascus. The light was so bright it had blinded him. For 3 whole days he couldn't see anything at all. While all this was happening on the road outside the city of Damascus, something else was happening inside the city. The Christians were becoming fearful inside the city because they had heard that Saul was on his way. They knew he was a cruel man that didn't like them. They knew what terrible things he had done to other Christians, and they were getting quite worried. There was a Christian there named Ananias who loved the Lord very much, and God spoke to him in a vision, telling him to go down to the street to find Saul. Now, Ananias had heard all about the stories of Saul, and he wasn't very fond of this plan. So Ananias spoke to the Lord, "What if he hurts me? What if he wants to kill me? Are you sure about this, Lord?" I'm sure we can all understand Ananias' hesitation to go out and find Saul. The Lord spoke to Ananias again, reassuring him that everything would be fine. So Ananias found the house where Saul was staying at and went for a visit. While he was there, he prayed for Saul and the blindness left him. The Lord healed him so he could see again. But not only was his physical sight healed, his spiritual sight was healed as well. God made him whole, and Saul accepted Christ into his heart, and so he became Paul. Paul stayed in Damascus with the Christians. He became good friends with them and learned from them. It wasn't long before Paul became a preacher teaching people about Jesus. Everyone was amazed. They couldn't believe that this was the same person that had hated them so much and wanted to kill them. You'll know this from the New Testament, but Paul goes on to write so many books, and he went out and reached out to so many people. His sole goal was to reach out to anyone and everyone, whether they were a Jew or a Gentile. Through him, God made it possible to reach so many more people. This is just one of the many transformational miracle stories that God has done. Every day, He is helping and guiding us along the path that we should follow. Even in our society recently, I have seen so many people come together in some of the most creative ways that before we were separated, we never really would have thought of. From Zoom songster meetings and band rehearsals to painted rocks on trails and even messages on our big buildings. Our society has seen a transformation of sorts to try and show each other from afar that we're still here. I've also seen so many more problems arise, and this is sad. But I truly believe that if we do our part and follow God and His plan, even the possibly painful transformations He has for us, I believe we will see such great things to come. What transformations have you seen lately? Have you gone through any? Let God be your everything, and you'll see where it takes you.
Keep me connected to you. I don't wanna do this alone. You're asking me to love you with my whole heart. It's not so hard since you